This podcast is sponsored by Amazon Studios, presenting 13 Lives from director-producer Ron Howard and starring Viggo Mortensen, Colin Farrell, and Joel Edgerton. 13 Lives recounts the effort to rescue a Thai soccer team trapped in a cave during an unexpected storm. Vanity Fair calls it a pulse-pounding, incredibly detailed recreation of a remarkable global event. 13 Lives is streaming now on Prime Video.
Hello, readers and listeners of AwardsWatch.com. This is the AwardsWatch Podcast. It's episode 161. I'm the executive editor, Ryan McQuade. Joining me today is our editor-in-chief, Erik Anderson.
Hello, it's me.
You're the problem.
I'm the problem. It's me.
Dan Bayer.
Hello, everybody.
And Josh Parham.
Hello, hello.
We're just here to talk about some movie stuff this week. We're just here to talk about Film Critic Awards, favorite holiday movies, bunch of listener questions, and then we're going to get the hell out of here. All right. Nothing's been crazy going on this week, other than I did get to meet Dan this week.
In person.
In person. That was a fun thing that happened this week.
For the first time.
Yeah. I got to meet Sophia, too.
After we both saw the eventual Best Picture winner of the year, Avatar: The Way of Water.
I don't know about that, but we saw a good movie.
Well, if it's not that, then certainly the number one grossing film of the year. Woo, yeah. Team 2.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's tracking really well for itself, isn't it?
Yes.
And that's just in China.
I know. Yeah. Really. I don't want to know what the movie you guys are going to pick for us in that category, because everything else at the box office just looks bad, except for Black Panther 2 and Avatar 2. Everything else looks really bad right now. So, but we're not here to talk about any of that stuff. There's been a lot of stuff that's happened over the last week. We had National Board of Review. We had AFI. And today we had 7,000 critics groups decide to spread chaos amongst the websites. There was, what was it? It was Boston, Erik. It was
Boston, Los Angeles, St. Louis,
New York Online,
and New York Online, which really isn't that much, but
they're doing it all at once
at the same time. So,
yeah, it was a pretty rough day. Let's start with just today first, because I thought today was pretty big. Erik, you were covering it all on Twitter and on our website.
God bless you.
God bless you, Erik. So I was seeing you just
tweet deck. Otherwise, I don't know what I would do without it.
So, what did you think of the critics groups that were announced today, which is time of recording Sunday on December 11th?
Well, I mean, the theme of everything today and what we are seeing is the Banshees of Inisherin and Everything Everywhere All at Once. It is mostly about those two films. They're getting the most mentions, nominations, wins, regardless of the group. So those are very quickly becoming really the top two films in the critic sphere, at least this early. We still have 2 more weeks, but those are really, really doing it. Tar obviously is too.
Yes,
is doing very well.
Very well.
And none of this should be unexpected. There's not a whole lot of big surprises. Maybe a little bit of The Fabelmans is a little quiet. Elvis is doing very well.
RRR.
I'm not surprised that RRR is doing well, because there was a critical push for it months ago, and definitely when India did not choose it. So the fact that critics are backing it is very, very intentional. They're doing it so that it can get that profile.
I think what I'm just surprised about it
it's
is
a good movie. I'm not saying that's not. It's just,
no, I'm not surprised with it like in like international feature categories. I'm surprised in a lot of the tech categories that it's beating a lot of the other films that we either presume to be front runners or that these groups usually go for. And so like seeing it win score at a couple of places has been a really big surprise.
Yes.
Very deserved.
Yeah, and to get the director win from New York film critics was big enough, but then to also be the director runner up from LAFCA, that's very big. And I love that because it is giving critics groups permission to vote for this movie that is not, I mean, like everyone has really liked this movie, but it's hardly like a critical darling. But Rajamouli is absolutely the type of person who needs that push from critics in order to make a claim to any sort of industry nominations.
Yeah. And unlike a lot of these kinds of pushes in certainly international films, it's been on Netflix since like the beginning of summer, so everyone has seen it. This is not, this happened last year with Drive My Car, which is a great film, but the visibility of it was so small. So when it won the trifecta, anyone that's even looking at Critics Awards from the outside is like, how do I even see this, and what is this? And you guys just sound like a bunch of snobs, like we're seeing happen this year. But something like RRR has absolute multi-quadrant appeal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I can say this because I did this today. By far the best way to spend a day is just show a friend RRR.
Yeah.
And just watch them watch the movie and enjoy it, because that is one like crazy, insane, glorious piece of blockbuster action cinema.
Yeah. I still am hesitant. I'm still hesitant in how it will land with the Academy down the road. I mean, it not being selected is a big hurdle for it.
I mean, it not necessarily, because we saw that happen with City of God, where it was snubbed for the country's choice and then went on the next year when it was eligible for main Oscars to get 4 nominations. The same thing happened with Three Colors Red, and also Talk to Her, when after they were not selected by their country, they received this kind of push from people who really loved the movie to see it get recognized elsewhere, and it took hold. So I feel like if there's any movie that could happen with, it is RRR. Like it's happening, and that is sort of that groundswell, organic feeling thing, like what happened with Parasite, like what happened with Drive My Car, that could really happen.
Well, those movies were though eligible for
those movies
feature.
were eligible for international feature and were able to sweep other things up, but it came about because people really loved those movies, and everybody loved those movies.
Yeah.
The more fascinating thing to me is that both LAFCA and NYFCC chose EO as their best international film.
Yeah.
That's doing very well.
Little donkey that could.
Everyone was sort of figuring that it was going to be Decision to Leave as the international feature to beat, with maybe some initial peeling off for All Quiet on the Western Front, but like it's the little donkey that could. Like this is the year of the donkey, apparently. And like, that Jenny vote from Banshees of Inisherin is like coming over to the Polish country.
And Triangle of Sadness.
Triangle of Sadness. Yeah, it really is the year. That's your donkey trilogy right there. Yeah. No, I am a little sad by. I mean, I know it's early and things are very early still, but the Decision to Leave, lack of love so far is kind of interesting. I mean, it's not to say that EO isn't a bad film. It's a very good film. But I just thought, and I think most of us thought, because over the last many couple of years, The Handmaiden and Park Chan-wook's filmography has become more in the mainstream for critics and voters and things of that nature. And so, and it is a really good film. It's one of the best reviewed films of the year too. So it's surprising to not see him or the film or even the performances. get any runner-up prizes or wins yet, but it's still early. But it is. But
It got
It
the
did
film
got
editing
some-
win from
yeah.
Boston, but the narrative is taking hold very fast.
yeah, it really is. Yeah,
It'll be unstoppable at that point. There's nothing else that will kind of be able to really work its way in. And like Dan said, with New York and LA and these early groups, they are giving permission for other groups and regional groups to go, oh, okay, so we're not going to be super weird if we do this. And that helps something like EO as well, which again, like you said, is surprising a little bit as it's become the early choice.
Yeah. Josh, how you think everything's looking so far?
Well, I think particularly with international feature, really just shows how that category just does not have a front runner to me.
Yeah.
And I think we sort of assumed, in the beginning that probably Decision to Leave because of all those reasons, but the field is pretty wide. And I think that there's a lot of different options out there. And I am very interested to see how that's going to go moving forward. I have a feeling that some of the more regional groups will maybe default to Decision to Leave and it will maybe make a comeback, but I'm not sure. There's a lot of options out there, and I'm very fascinated to see how that race is going to unfold.
Yeah, I mean, the industry, everybody in the critics groups could be pushing RRR. The industry could easily go to a movie that we also early in the race thought would be a player, which is Bardo, because they do like Inuri, and in the Oscars they do love their favorites, especially a guy that has 5 statues. And if there's no it's quiet so far. There's been a lot of movies that have been quiet. You mentioned it, Erik, already, that like The Fabelmans has been kind of quiet so far. I don't think that hurts a movie like The Fabelmans.
Not right now. I mean, I never really expected The Fabelmans to be a big hit with critics
player.
Awards.
No.
So yeah, that is a totally, we're saving that for the industry. That very much was
if it does
I thought was going to happen.
Bad tomorrow with Globes, then you can, because they've usually been pretty Globe friendly with Spielberg in a movie like that, then you can maybe worry a little bit. But I think the big story, besides Erik, you mentioning Everything Everywhere All at Once, Banshees of Inisherin, I think the big story so far has been Tar. And that seems to be the one that has had 2 weeks so far. Really great. No. You guys can scoff at me all you want, but look at this movie winning both top film at NYCC and LAFCA today. And what happens majority of the time when that happens is that film goes on to be a Best Picture nominee.
Yeah.
I know we talked about this, I think last week or the week before, but at winning today, even though, yes, it was a tie with Everything Everywhere All at Once, but also too, history sides on that tie's favor, because there have been 3 ties before this, including this tie. So it's 4 ties. And every one of those films, because I saw Erik's tweet about this, every one of those films that were in those ties went on to be nominated for Best Picture. Yeah. And you then see
none of them won,
but
yes,
I don't know. Some of them won. No, one flew over the Cuckoo's
Afternoon Network.
One flew over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, that's right, Rocky
and Cuckoo's Nest, right? So there you go.
Oh yeah. What am I talking about?
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I don't think anyone
remember what you tweeted
at you, Ryan.
It's just scoffing at like that being the big story. It's like Tar wins Critics Prize. That always felt like that was going to happen.
I think no. Because the fact of the matter is that it's not just the film. You're seeing Todd Field win a lot of director prizes already. You're seeing it win screenplay prizes. It's a lot stronger than just Cate Blanchett also winning prizes too, which is expected for a lot of people, like we mentioned last week. So it's winning a lot of awards so far. And that's, to me, is showing that this is actually the movie that critics are universally so far in most of the categories. It's one of those top players, but they're with Banshees and Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's playing well across the board at almost every critics group.
Critics.
At every critics group.
I still say that them supporting that movie is not very shocking.
It's not surprising.
I actually think the more important story is actually Banshees. And especially with Colin Farrell just really sweeping the critics' prizes for Best Actor. That was actually a little surprising to me. I feel like that is really showing it to be a really strong contender for him. I even think
Carrie Condon too.
Yeah, Carrie Condon, Brendan Gleeson, and
exactly
the screenplay. Like it's becoming
the
a lot more
screenplay is
competitive
becoming it's so far it feels like a screenplay race. Like Todd Field has picked up a couple, but it's mostly been Martin McDonagh. And then it's mostly been Colin Farrell. No Brendan Fraser so far.
Yeah. And those are two categories.
Today was the only break from the Colin Farrell rail train that he's just been running.
Yeah. Bill Nye. Yeah.
And Best Actor and Original Screenplay are just really, there's not, I don't think, a definitive winner yet in either of those cases. And the critics seem to be pushing those into an Irish direction, which is really interesting considering how much critics are also clearly loving Everything Everywhere All at Once and Tar this year, for Banshees to be doing so universally well in those categories is that's a big statement.
Yeah.
And the reason I was agreeing with Josh is because I'm looking at the wins, but I'm also looking at groups that have nominations and what those look like, because Banshees and Everything Everywhere are in double digits multiple places, and that's what it's going to kind of continue to look like, and that's where you're building. Tar is getting a lot of great wins. It also might end up like maybe with 5 or 6 Oscar nominations, not 10,
which is great because that could include director and picture and screenplay and actress. Not that it has to, but what I'm saying is that for some people, they've been on the bubble as to if Tar can get over the threshold into the 10, and it having these key wins.
It's top 5.
No, but what I'm saying is a lot of people don't think like that. So what I'm saying is that those wins in particular are big for it because Everything Everywhere All at Once and Banshees are clearly front runners. So that's not surprising at all that they're winning a bunch of things. I mean, it's not surprising to me. I've said for weeks that Banshees of Inisherin could easily squeak by the Fabelmans and Everything Everywhere All at Once if there's a split between the industry. But Tar,
Ryan, you're not doing one of those. Oh, I've said this for weeks. Everyone's just catching up. Are you? No, we're not. I
just think that Tar winning these awards, it's a big sign for it in terms of its nominations, and it's also kind of interesting too because of the fact that there is a movie that, while Tar is winning a lot, and Banshees and Everything Everywhere All at Once is winning a lot so far, the movie that's not winning as much as I thought it would, especially with critics, has been Women Talking, and it's won some ensembles, and we all kind of assumed going into the season that it would be like that would be the critics' film, and Fabelmans would be, especially in director, it would be Sarah Polley versus Steven Spielberg, and that doesn't look to be the case. That there might be room for others in this fight, down the line when it gets to the industry awards against Spielberg. It might just be Spielberg all the way. It's been really interesting so far to look at best director and picture.
It's clearly going to be Jackass Forever. I think.
Clearly that's the ensemble. We can just forget about it. I mean,
SAG Boston doing incoming.
But I think that I was seeing somebody on Twitter today say that Colin Farrell very much feels like the critics in the industry might go a different route. Like the critics go Colin Farrell, but then possibly Austin Butler, because the SAG screenings and the PGA screenings and everything have been jam-packed. He's already doing the interviews. He has his Actors on Actors that released today with Janelle Monáe.
It's really good.
It's really good. The one that was really good was Jamie Lee Curtis and Colin Farrell. That's what I mean. Those two were really, that was very emotional.
They were wonderful.
But yeah, I mean, I think that the critics they've kind of weeded out early on some of the stuff and we're seeing, because usually by this point here on out, it seems to become repetitive almost. I think at least critic wins, because then they see those and then, okay, yeah, we can vote for these things, or they end up voting for the same things over and over and over again. So if we see a lot of repeat winners now, I feel like over the next couple of weeks, we might be seeing that too. I will say, we also had AFI this week. AFI was big. They had their 10 films in their special prize, so they had their top 11. And I'm just going to read those off real quick for all of our listeners who don't know what those are. And it was Avatar: The Way of Water, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Nope, She Said, Tar, Top Gun Maverick, The Woman King, Women Talking. The special prize went to The Banshees of Inisherin. Any surprises there? Anyone surprised by anything there?
I mean, Nope was a little surprising.
Yeah.
Universal did very well.
Yeah, they did really well. That what they got 3 in there.
Yeah, very well. And
very well.
Tar, if you count, Focus subs of
go.
Universal, but straight up Universal films, 3.
That's
of
pretty
10.
good.
Pretty good.
It's pretty good.
That's no Babylon. That was
Babylon.
Tiny bit surprising.
Yep. No Babylon. Anything else that you guys were surprised? No, I was surprised. That Avatar got right under the gun.
Yeah, I do think it is noticeable that the Woman King has been doing fairly well too.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely something to keep an eye on going forward.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Nope has been playing well too with critics groups and landing in some picture fields as well. Hopefully that can carry, because it's a damn good movie.
Would love a score nomination for that.
Oh, me too. What a great score. But then, Woman King getting in to this lineup. It also got into National Board of Review, if I'm not mistaken. Those 10, which I thought was interesting, was After Sun and Avatar: The Way of Water, Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Glass Onion, RRR, Till, The Woman King, Women Talking, and their best picture, their top film, was Top Gun Maverick. So we can just now eliminate Top Gun Maverick from winning best picture, right? Because that's how usually it goes with National Board of Review, right?
Right? Usually, but I would not count that movie out this year. I did kind of figure that NBR would
be the one to go for that.
Very predictable that they would pick that.
Yeah, and the thing that is like even more stunning about that lineup to me was RRR getting into their top 10, because they do not really do that.
That started off the strong
films.
Week for it.
Yeah.
Parasite didn't even make it in.
Parasite didn't even make it in. I think I think Roma did, and maybe.
Yeah, I had a list of the non-English language films, and now I don't have it in front of me.
It's very, very few. They don't really do that. So that to me was very cool. And like I said, this could finally happen. I love that we are moving towards a best picture lineup that is close to, if not at 50% giant blockbusters.
I mean, sure. I think so. I mean,
it's stretching it a bit. But we already had.
Be good.
We knew that Everything Everywhere was solidly in, and that is $100 million hit.
Is that a blockbuster though?
Yeah.
Even though it's an indie budget,
standards,
$100 million.
By these standards, okay.
$100 million.
Well, just because $100
million is a blockbuster. $100 million has always been the minimum criteria for a blockbuster.
Okay. Right.
That's insane.
Well,
I'm not. I'm just something like Black Panther.
Well, no. Well, I'm just curious because, I think of blockbuster, I don't think of the money it makes. I think of the money. I think of the budget behind it. That's more of what I think.
I mean, you could apply that to everything.
You can apply that to Everything Everywhere too.
I mean, it doesn't have $100 million budget, but okay.
No, but relative to the amount of money that it made to its budget,
your own argument,
yes.
It is a blockbuster.
Yeah, on a smaller scale for sure,
yes.
but
but it is
that kind of a movie making $100 million. Yeah, that's very,
and being in theaters for as long as it was.
I just think that if
that's
if
crazy.
it's at indie spirits, it's not really a blockbuster. But anyway, that's just me. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, it
is
has
an
the
idea.
box office to back it up. So whatever.
I mean, yeah, but so do many of movies that have been nominated over there. And I'm not calling them blockbusters. I'm sorry. That's just what I mean.
Popular movies, then.
Popular movies.
Fine.
Yes.
Okay, popular
There we go.
movies. We had
Populous
that.
movies.
Top Gun Maverick been looking like a sure bet ever since it was like every week since it was released.
I don't
It's
know
going to
if it
get
was
in.
a sure bet ever since it was released, but as the season's gone on, it's become that.
It has increased every week since it was released.
Yeah, because certain movies left the race, and then
Mhm.
obviously its staying power
And-
and its box office. Yes,
And I know we haven't gotten like the full reviews yet. Those dropped next week, but the social reactions to Avatar: The Way of Water were almost, if not more, rapturous than the original. And
Yeah, I'll be very
RRR,
curious to see the
giant
difference.
blockbuster.
Any difference between the two, the social reaction and reviews, because we do see it all the time. People
do.
get very excited by seeing something early and first, and they're very effusive with their praise, and then reviews come out and it's like, yeah, it's pretty good. Or if it's not the same person, you just
I did. Listen,
Yeah.
I tweeted my reaction. I liked it. So
Yeah.
there you
And
go.
from someone as avowedly anti-James Cameron as you, Mr.
That
McQuade,
says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
that says a lot.
Mhm.
But so we have like those three, and now we have RRR staking a claim. We
Yeah.
have Elvis looking pretty damn good
Woman King.
in coming up the center in this race too. I mean,
Mhm.
and we have yet to see how well Babylon will do with both critics and
Mhm.
audiences, but
Mhm.
that could end up also turning audiences out. We'll see.
Yeah.
It's a very exciting Best Picture race this year.
Something that's been interesting about this weekend and the first round of these awards is, yes, Tar and Banshees and Everything Everywhere are critical hits, like in a big way.
Mhm.
The biggest critical hit, at least according to Metacritic, is After Sun.
Yes.
And while Charlotte Wells is winning literally every single first film and debut director,
Yep,
it's not been a whole lot outside of that. Paul Mescal hasn't won anything. It
did.
That editing tie.
Well,
It won 2 editing prizes today.
Which
crazy.
is weird and super cool, but it's so random. But I'm like, it's a strange thing when groups do start to coalesce very quickly, even if it's not a collective number one choice. The way that After Sun is.
Yeah, but I will say it did make the top 10 here for NBR, which was a shock. I think
it was the funniest thing because I was looking for it in the independent list. I'm like, why isn't it in here? This is crazy.
Yeah.
And I didn't, I had totally passed by that it was in the main list.
Yeah. And not everything always translates from NBR over to the Oscars. I mean, like, Tar clearly was not a movie that they win for. And yet, same thing happened last year with The Power of the Dog. I'm not antiquating the same things, but I'm just saying it's that there's usually a big film within the race that is always missing out. Though Banshees winning screenplay, supporting actor, and actor did really well for itself there. Michelle Yeoh winning for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Janelle Monáe winning for Glass Onion. The adapted screenplay going to All Quiet on the Western Front, which thank God it did. International feature going to Close. Ensemble going to Women Talking. Cinematography, Claudio Miranda for Top Gun Maverick. Spielberg obviously winning director. NBR was kind of all over the place, but it was like kind of also like, yeah, all these winners make sense. There wasn't anyone that like truly shocked me. Other than, I was kind of shocked that that RRR did make it in because it was earlier in the week before most of the critics groups started, and I was shocked that it made the best picture list. But it was a good little surprise there. And then All Quiet, Argentina 1985, Decision League, EO, Santa Maria, those were their international features. And then they hit their independent 10 were Armageddon Time, Emily the Criminal, The Eternal Daughter, Funny Pages, The Inspection, Living, A Love Song, Nanny, The Wonder, and To Leslie. So
I do think it's fascinating that the best actor, best actress, and best supporting actor races just in this short time have very quickly turned into it's really just between these two people or just one person. But supporting actress is beautifully wide open.
That category is a giant
See, Michelle,
mess.
you should have stayed in supporting.
Yeah.
I mean, I thank Michelle for this. I think
mean,
we have this
yeah.
chaos because she left the category, and it's beautiful, as you said. I love this.
I mean, we've had Janelle Monáe, we've had Kiki Palmer, we had Dolly De Leon today with LA.
Hong Chow. I mean, this is a great category.
It's a great category to spread the wealth throughout the season and see who's going to kind of come to the top.
Yeah, this is great because we can enjoy this now until we get to the later half when all of the televised awards pick the same one.
Oh God, yeah.
Josh, if you had a prediction who that one person would be that starts sweeping everything, do you have anybody off the top of your head right now?
I have a feeling about Carrie Condon as somebody who could do that. Not that she's my official prediction for who would win at this moment, but as somebody who could potentially sweep, I think it could be her.
I've had that in my head, and I'm going to say a name, and Erik might roll his eyes to the back of his head. I've had this feeling about Angela Bassett over the last couple of days. I know, but I think that she's been everywhere so far. She's been doing a lot of campaigning. It would be the one way to reward that film more than ever. And she's also got a complete overdue narrative. And it's Angela Bassett, for Christ's sake. You know what I mean? So
there are 20 people with overdue narratives.
No, I know.
Harry Condon thing is an argument people are using in a way that makes a lot of sense, as we'd like to give this movie an acting win, but we're probably not going to do Gleason or Farrell, and this would be the place to do it.
Yeah, and she definitely feels like the lone win in kind of character and actress. And for the past few years, supporting actress has gone to people who are the lone winners for their films.
Many years in a row. So unless Banshees is, like losing screenplay and Farrell's losing, there is some logic to it.
That feels like with that the confusion around that category and the co-confusion with original screenplay, that feels like Martin McDonagh already has one. We can award this film for supporting actress, freeing up original screenplay to go to one of the other frontrunners.
I don't think a lot of people actually really know that he has one. I think if you polled people on the street, they wouldn't really remember that he has one.
We're not talking about people on the street. We're talking about Academy members.
Yeah, I think if I found those same Academy members on the street, I'd be like, do you think he has one? And they'd probably be like, no.
It wasn't that long ago, Ryan.
It was
although
20 years
for
ago.
a short film, so
they might have
it. It's not like it was for 3 billboards or anything.
It's not going to matter.
Yeah. I mean,
I think a lot of people think he has one for 3 billboards.
Yeah. You know what? You're right there. There you go.
Yep.
I think also too, I mean, like, that might be the place where they say, you know what, that's where we want to reward Todd Field. That's where we, where we want to reward the Daniels. That's where maybe if they go with
that's
it.
one of the
Tony
last places
Kushner.
that they're going to win, is original screenplay.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, it feels like whatever wins, that's winning picture. At this point, it feels like that because that's where our big contenders are in that category. And then, I mean, we haven't seen it in the critics yet, but still don't count out like Claire Foy or Jessie Buckley for Women Talking. They're going to be there for the rest of the remainder of the season. We'll see how that goes. I mean, I hope it's Condon. I mean,
there's very few bad options in this category.
No, it's a really rich year for supporting actress, to be honest with you.
Yeah, my personal ballot is a nightmare to try to figure that out. Like I'm making very, very tough decisions.
It's a very, very good category.
Yeah. Well, what's Erik? What's coming up this week? What are the big ones this week besides Globes? We'll talk about that here in a sec.
Oh wait, now I got to look at my list.
Critics' Choice is this week, isn't it?
I think it's
15th Hollywood
yes.
Critics Association, Critics' Choice,
Yes.
Golden
Yep.
Globe nominations tomorrow or today, as this is
recording or
today.
releasing. Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of busy. Let's see.
While Eric's looking that
Chicago
up,
Critics,
here we go.
Women Film Critics, Phoenix, Boston Online. It avalanches from there because everything's trying to happen before the holiday break.
Yep.
And we have the Oscar shortlists. Voting for that starts tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And those come out the week after next. So yeah, next week is a mad dash.
Yeah. To New Year's. Does anybody, speaking of Golden Globes, I know that by the time this episode releases, we'll have already probably had the nominations, but it's always fun to go back and see if we were wrong or not. Does anybody have a No Guts, No Glory prediction for tomorrow that they're sticking behind with this crazy organization, whatever the hell is going on?
In terms for the nominations?
Yep. Not a win. We don't know any wins yet.
I think that in addition to picture and actor, we are going to see Baz Luhrmann get a Best Director nomination for Elvis.
Okay. That's Dan's. Josh?
Yeah, in terms of like a true No Guts, No Glory, I decided to do one for Best Actress in musical or comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And I went with Bella Ramsey for Catherine Called Birdie.
I would love that.
All right.
And the only reason
would
is just
love
because,
that.
like, in the very early precursors, like when we didn't have a ton, it just seemed like it was getting some nominations that I didn't expect. So I thought, maybe this movie is a tad bit stronger. So I just said, you know what, let's just do it. I mean, it's just a Golden Globe nomination. Like, if I'm wrong, it's not that big of a deal. But I just decided to take a chance on that one.
Okay. Erik, you got anything?
This is the first time I have not done Golden Globe nominations. I think
For shame.
Since I started the site, and I was just kind of going back and forth on how I wanted to talk about and manage things with the Globes and how to cover and all of the things. So I decided not to. Yes, I'm going to cover the nominations, and yes, I'm going to talk about the show and everything. But it's also harder this year, I think, than any year ever, because you have this influx of 103 new members.
Yeah.
So we've got like 200 now.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really know exactly what that impact is going to be yet. You have their new rules. You have no submissions necessary, which they did start last year. And that was really to cover their own asses so that, in case no studios decided to submit anything. So they're like, no, we're just going to. So it kind of turned them a little bit more into like the satellite awards. So I don't know. I think it could be really wild and really different. What I do think is going to happen is the change that they implemented where you can have non-English language films and animated films back into the main categories, because that was not the case before. So I think we're going to see things like RRR in comedy. I think we're going to see a little bit more of an international bent on these nominations because they can get in there now. I mean, it's a little bit of wishful thinking too, but I think it's obviously more likely because it can happen now.
Yeah,
I agree with you, Erik.
Mark for what is going to happen with them, because I definitely agree that the new membership, the new rules, the new scrutiny, just in general, the instinct is that you still want to kind of predict the crazy nominations because we're just used to that with the Globes, but I feel like they will be not quite as adventurous, shall we say?
Yeah,
and I just don't know where that balance is going to be this year.
Yeah, I don't think we're getting the Tourist and Aaron Taylor Johnson kind of stuff.
Well,
I think those days might be really kind of petering out.
Okay, so I have two No Guts, No Glory picks, and I have no earthly idea why I'm going to pick these, other than the Globes being the Globes. And so I think that one of the songs from Lyle Lyle Crocodile will be nominated for Best Original Song, particularly Top of the World Tonight with Shawn Mendes, so that he can be in the room. And in supporting actor, I have a wild nomination that none of us will see coming, but we'll all scratch our head if it comes true or not. Which is because I think that they will nominate Tom Cruise, and I do not think he will be the only one nominated for Top Gun Maverick. I think they will nominate Miles Teller as well.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So
All right.
this is a no brains, no glory.
I'm
All
saying
right,
that I think that in I'm Dan's on the money with something like, I don't see it as bad as I see it as Kaczynski for Top Gun Maverick. That's what I see getting in. I think they're going to go hard on Top Gun Maverick.
I think Dan is right. I think Lauren makes more sense in there, but I am probably the most curious about the Tom Cruise and Brendan Fraser of it all.
Yeah.
That's going to be such a focus on coverage today as well, depending on how it all shakes out. Because we know that Brendan Fraser was asked and said he will not attend the show if he's nominated. Cruise gave back his 3. How are they going to respond to that? And in turn, how are those people going to respond?
Yeah.
That's a big part of the story.
Well, I think we can ask this question. It was going to be one of our listener questions, but
Talking about it.
Given that the HFPA's lack of acknowledgement of Brendan Fraser's alleged assault by former HFPA president, does this automatically mean the organization will shut him out of nominations? And if they do happen to nominate him, what level of accountability, if any, will they hold themselves? Morgan asked that question. I mean, if they didn't nominate him, I would be very shocked. It would be a very shocking thing to not see him get nominated. I think we talked about this last week, Dan, was when you were here. If they didn't give him the win, that wouldn't surprise me, because he's not in the room and they know he's not going to be in the room. So they're going to vote, they can vote a different way.
Especially if Elvis is nominated for Best Picture and The Whale is not.
Right.
Yeah.
That's just preference for the movies.
But to not nominate him at all would be...
Yeah. I don't think that's happening.
I don't know about that. Yeah, I can't see that. That would be a nightmare for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've had such an interesting response to a lot of their scrutiny, which has been sort of a balance of, we're going to make all these changes as well as we're going to do what we want. There's such a strange mix of that. But now that they've split into 2 different organizations, the for-profit and the non-for-profit, and the TV show is separate from the philanthropy and all the things, I think all of these things are going to make a lot of different choices. But yeah, I don't see a scenario in which they don't nominate him. If for anything, they have 10 spots, so they can do that. Colin Farrell's going to be over in comedy. It would be pretty shocking.
It would.
I was also thinking about what you said earlier, Erik, because I had forgotten that they had added so many new members. And do those members even care about or know about the allegation? They weren't a part of the organization when it happened or when the accusation was made. So do they even care that it's made? They're going there. I would imagine that they probably think, well, I don't know anything about that. I just love the performance, or I don't like the performance.
They just have to see it too, because he's missed out, and the film has missed out on quite a few early things as a result. But it has to be seen too.
Yeah, I mean, the movie is. I mean, clearly A24 is shifting their focus to Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is the right move for them. At this point, it really does feel like, unless Hong Chow can coattail along with him, it might be Fraser and the makeup, and that's probably it for the film at this point. It's really underperformed.
Beauty of it all.
It's really underperformed so far. It's really underperformed so far. But that's also too, like, it could play well with the Academy. It had a really great per screen average this past weekend with audiences.
The best of the year.
I don't.
Yeah, Tar also had a good PTA at the beginning, so
yeah. I was just
table that until it expands a little bit.
No, I agree. It's also it's a really rough movie but to ask people to go and see it too. It's not.
I think there were several of the screenings that had Q&As after, so those are going to be packed screenings.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, that's that'll be the pesky Golden Globes. Erik and I will do a recap of the Globes podcast sometime later this week to talk about them. Not just what happens on the film side, but on the TV side too, of everything. There'll be a bunch. We'll see. I'm actually curious about the TV side, because the TV side was like notorious under the old voting body of just being like, everything that's new gets nominated, and everything that's just season 2, forget about it. It's garbage, throw it in the trash, unless you're Julie Louis-Dreyfus. You know,
and they've added categories, which is a really good thing. They split the supporting stuff between limited series and comedy and drama, because when you'd have, these 30-minute comedy performances with, hour dramas and miniseries and TV movies all together in one place, it was
crazy,
ridiculous.
Yeah. Because you couldn't even tell which was. It didn't make sense that you split.
That was a great move. I loved that.
Yeah,
that was a good
move. So yeah, I'll be interested in seeing that. Hopefully, a lot of our favorites get the nominations. Anyway, listener questions. We're gonna just jump into that. We're gonna just do listener questions and we'll be out of here. So we'll save our favorite holiday movies for another time. Ricky wants to know, which actor / actress do you hope shows up in best comedy / musical at the Golden Globes? I assume
Billy Eichner.
Yeah, I would be down for that.
I think it's happening, but I want it to happen.
I actually really liked Josh's prediction earlier of Bella Ramsey. That would be really nice.
Pretty neat.
Mm-hmm.
I know that this is 100% not happening, but just as something that I would love to see, Ram Charan.
Yes, I was hoping you were going to say that, Josh, because yes.
And honestly, if we're entertaining the notion of Tom Cruise getting an Oscar nomination for Top Gun, and I love that movie, but if we're really wanting to give it to somebody who appeared in an action blockbuster this year that is really deserving of a Best Actor nomination, it's Ram Charan.
That's where I wanted to lean for a No Guts, No Glory, because that would be such a great example of the hopeful change that we want from them.
Mm-hmm. And I do think that RRR being classified comedy musical definitely helps it in picture. But I didn't even think about how it would help the actors, but that would be amazing.
Would love it so much.
Do they nominate? They don't. Voice performances aren't eligible, right?
They haven't ever done it.
Because I would love Jenny Slate to be nominated for Marcel the Shell.
It's a deserving performance, but I just don't think they would do that.
Well, it's what the question is what I hope for, Josh. It wasn't what I think we'll get.
Yeah, but you gotta have limits.
I know. Adam Driver for White Noise would be a great nomination too. I loved him in that film. I think he's fantastic in that.
It would be a nomination.
Oh, Josh. Oh, Josh. Damn. Okay. Kinsey, what is your favorite positive Golden Globe memory? Positive being the key word there in that sentence. It's got to be the Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, Catherine Bigelow, James Cameron torture joke. That's one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my life.
That and their George Clooney.
The George Clooney
one's good too. Their monologues were the best
thing.
Yeah.
Her husband is getting an award
tonight. Good job, honey.
Fucking flawless joke.
Gravity, about how George Clooney would rather float away into space than die than be attracted to a woman his own age.
Yes. Oh my God. So good.
Best host ever. Ever.
Really, truly.
Yeah.
My favorite positive moment, I could say the Christine Lathy bathroom fiasco, that was entertaining. And the whatever happened with Jacqueline Bisset.
Oh man, I think she's still on that stage speaking right now.
that was a speech for the ages.
That was but if I'm being honest, my favorite thing, and this is one of those like all-time awards show moments that I saw when I was younger and really stuck with me, was Ving Rhames giving his Golden Globe to
Jack Lemmon.
Jack Lemmon.
Yeah.
That was one of those moments where I was just like, oh, that like was so beautiful.
I remember when I was a kid,
like, no,
and thinking that was what you were supposed to do. Like, you could do that, and that's okay.
Yeah, like if you didn't think you were deserving, you can say,
I don't want this thing. Give it to Jack Lemmon. You know what I mean?
I think aside from, the stuff like Elizabeth Taylor yelling Gladiator out.
Gladiator!
Absolutely classic and wonderful.
Arnold for Avatar.
Yes, Avatar. I'm going to be very obvious and pick Madonna's Win for Evita because I loved it. Sorry, Frances McDormand, you got
That's beautiful, yeah.
It was wonderful. It was deserved. She deserved so much more that year, and I just thought it was great.
And how beautiful she looked.
Those
on
gloves,
stage with those gloves,
everything.
The globes,
the girls, the globes,
they were
everything.
Out. Yeah,
they were golden that night. Yep.
Yeah.
Josh, any positive moments from the Golden Globes?
It's not really something that I like agree with in terms of a winner's choice, but it's just a moment that I will always remember, and just in that moment brought me joy, which is the double win of Kate Winslet for The Reader and Revolutionary Road. And I just remember her energy in both of those speeches, and especially the second one where it really seemed like she was not expecting that. And like, I still think about her just saying gather, just trying to collect herself. And I was like 18 when I saw that ceremony too, so relatively young. And I think that was the moment that I always think about, of like, not that I enjoyed the wins necessarily, but I loved the moment that it created. It was very fun.
Yeah. I mean, like, I know the Golden Globes and the HFPA are a terrible organization, but they put on a great award show. They really do. It is hands down. It's the best one almost, because they get everybody drunk and they're in a room and they let their guard down and just have a little bit of fun. I also, one of my favorite moments is that Will Ferrell, Kristen Wiig presenting Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy, and the silver. Get out. And then it followed up the next year where it was Carell and Wiig, and they were talking about their favorite animated movies, and I think it was like Bambi and some other one where like their parents got divorced in the parking lot afterwards. Oh God, those are always great. Some pairings are always terrible for those award shows, but when you have real funny people, and if I'm not mistaken, the host this year is Gerard Carmichael.
I love that choice.
It's a great choice.
It's better than Keenan. I'll give him that, because Keenan did the Emmys and he wasn't that good for them. It's better than Jimmy Fallon. I mean, like,
anyone's better than Jimmy Fallon.
Better than Kimmel. Who's going to do?
We'll see. We'll see.
I know. I'm just saying it's a interesting pick. Rick asks, the HFPA loves J-Law, Jennifer Lawrence. Do y'all think she has a chance to get nominated for her performance for Causeway?
She has a chance, yeah.
A chance, sure.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, she does have, Apple behind it. They're going to get the word out about it. They're going to make sure people see it. But we'll see. That is a very small, very quiet movie.
Yeah. Deserving of a nomination.
Very.
Sure.
She's amazing. It's one of my favorite things she's done in years.
Yes. I would argue her best performance since Winter's Bone, honestly.
Yeah.
I think it tapped into what made her great from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which no one has done really with her since. Everything's been bigger.
I think that if they are the Golden Globes and they care about getting stars in the building, then yeah, she'll get nominated. But if they're going off of performances, there are a ton of other performances that will get nominated ahead of her, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Even though I think it's a good
categories
performance.
Help everybody.
What? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Eric?
Split categories
the
help
split categories.
everyone.
Yeah. Well, I think there's like, it's actress is pretty deep.
Well, I was going to say, and what actress performances that are lead are actually in musical or comedies? I'm not
Michelle
sure.
Yeoh.
Does
Michelle
Michelle
Yeoh.
Yeoh? She's the only
Margot Robbie.
one. Margot Babylon was
Yeah.
classified comedy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Officially.
So yeah,
I think that is a movie that's going to probably show up more than
Giselle.
As we move
what's
to the
happening
industry,
with it now.
yeah.
It could.
yeah, like that feels very like Globe saw it at the last second and they fell in love with it, sort of thing, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Where it's like Giselle and the score and Calva and Robbie and Pitt. Yeah, that makes sense.
They gave 7 awards to La La Land, so they do
All-time
like him.
record.
Ethan wants to know, and primarily this was for Josh and for Erik, because I think on the last episode, Dan and I answered this. What does the panel think about Tar's Best Day nomination wise at the Oscars? So, Josh?
I mean, Best Day, picture, director, actress, supporting actress, screenplay, editing.
That's
maybe
Cinematography.
Score. Yeah, cinematography.
Editing?
Maybe. Yeah.
Hmm.
I would love for sound. I don't think that's happening, but
Oh yeah, that sound nomination.
The
would be
sound
sound
work
work
is
in that movie is
good.
exceptional.
It's very good.
It's all part of the film. It's all part of the whole
entire
thing.
third act is
Sound.
is a deconstruction of sound in what is going on in her head. So
Yeah.
it really should.
Yes. So I would say those are the scenarios for the Best Day. I don't think it's obviously getting all of those, but that
Meet in
is
the
the
middle.
feeling I would
Yeah.
think.
Meet in the middle. 5 scenes about right.
Yeah. The max out it would be able to get would really be 8 if it did get sound editing and cinematography. It does have that camera image win,
Yep.
which is kind of a big deal
Yeah.
and a little bit surprising. We have an interview with Florian Hofmeister right now on the site if you want to go and check it out.
Please check it out.
It's a really, really good interview.
Really great interview.
Talks a lot about his process in shade and darkness, and it's really, really good.
Yeah.
I feel more like 5.
Yeah.
8 is max.
Yeah.
5 or 6 is where we're at.
Yeah.
I haven't seen much about Nina Haas in the last week.
Well, if you want to,
yeah.
if you want to read a good interview with Nina Haas, you can go to awardswatch.com.
If you must say so yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whoever did that interview.
Read your own work, but sure, yeah, okay.
Same with Todd Field, if you want to as well. Kevin Jacobson wants to know. We all love Kevin Jacobson. Do you think some of these critics groups would have given Michelle Williams their supporting actress wins if the studio had campaigned her there in the first place?
Quite possibly, yes.
I think she'd be sweeping, to be honest with you. Maybe not sweeping, I guess, but she'd be winning a ton so far. She would have won National Board of Review in a landslide.
But groups can put anybody anywhere they want.
I think
they can, but they rarely.
They can, but they rarely go against.
They rarely do.
Yeah, I mean, look at Keke Palmer. I mean, they're not going. They're not going against the studio.
Usually
there.
not that adventurous.
Yeah, they're not that cool.
I know.
I think that if she was in supporting, she'd be winning a bunch of prizes. As the way of saying, like, this is the way we could award the Fablemans.
So, do you think that that's why we have as much of an open race as it has been in that category because she's not a part of it?
Yes.
I absolutely believe that. I think her exiting that category has meant that there has been no consensus for who could possibly be the front runner, and that's why all of these precursors are just all over the place. Because before it was just, well, it's going to be Michelle Williams, and 4 also ran, so we don't need to think about it that much. But now all the also rans, as we were thinking about them, are potential front runners.
It's very 2007 Best Supporting Actress film like this year.
Ooh.
I hope so.
That's what it's feeling like. Who's the Tilda? Who's the Tilda?
Carrie Condon.
Yes.
All right. Matthew St. Clair asks, how do you think Siobhan from Banshees of Inisherin would fare on film Twitter? I
I
think
think
the
the all
broad-
idiots and just quit
Yeah,
our
she'd
account.
leave within a day. Like,
Yeah,
You'd have to lock her account.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
you're
true.
all a bunch of fucking morons, and then she'd leave.
Yeah,
I like that.
I don't
That's
think
good.
that would be like her bag.
No, she just float away to another app. Probably float to Instagram or something. Leave us all in the Twitter wars. Stan Parasite wants to know, and this is our last question: is Netflix in danger of being out of the running this year for Best Picture? Even Glass Onion didn't make AFI and National Board Review. Well, yeah, it did, didn't it?
It made one of them.
It made one of them. It did
It
make
did
both.
not make AFI.
Yeah, it
No,
did not
no,
make
they
AFI.
Made NBR.
Yeah, no streamer made AFI. That was the big news out of AFI.
That was the big news.
Yes.
And
Sorry to miss
obviously
that.
the other big news is how mostly poorly Netflix is performing so far after, having quite a few years of
Dominance.
major films.
They've had one film every year, and this year it's
Well, I think
Well, they had one film every year that they were pushing like it was the presumptive Best Picture winner, and this year that was supposed to be Bardo, and then it dropped at Venice, and the critical response I don't think was what anyone over there was hoping for.
nope.
I think it's a little more that because they have had basically the one, even when they have tons of films, they do have the one, and everybody knows well in advance
What that one is.
what it is, and they're pretty unwilling to waver from that. That this year they have Bardo started and Glass Onion and Pinocchio, so it's kind of moved around, and because of that, nothing is really quite landing, because they did obviously make a very clear effort to put Pinocchio up into Best Picture consideration.
Mhm.
We'll see what happens with that, but yeah, it's feeling a little light.
Yeah. I mean, for my money, Pinocchio should be their big push. I know that they want Glass Onion, and I love that movie to pieces, and I think what it did at the box office shows its prowess of that they got a hit on their hands, a movie that, clearly audiences want to see. That would categorize it, I guess, technically, if it got in as a blockbuster too, based off the acquisition and everything, even though it won't show it at the box office. But and it's done well with some nominations at various critics groups, and Janelle Monáe showing up as well, a bunch of places.
It'll get at least 3 at the Globes tomorrow.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's gonna
Oh
get.
yeah.
It'll get a good showing at the Globes. I think that, Dan, you're right. Bardo underperforming with the critics early on, having a second cut and having to kind of like redo that. They've never had that before.
Yeah.
Even though I think the second cut is better than the original, and I like the film, but I know it for everybody. It ebbs and flows.
And it does feel like it's warming up a little bit for some
Yeah.
newer audiences, but I don't think it's quite enough to get into like a Best Picture conversation. I still think there's a bit of an uphill battle with that.
I feel like if All Quiet on the Western Front was from a bigger director
Yeah.
than Everberger, and I love Everberger, really good guy, great work on the film, but it feels like the other thing that really kind of goes with it is with that front runner project that we've said they usually have a pretty
It's a big
well-known big
Yeah.
director, and that was Iñárritu, and so that's where you get in that. Ryan Johnson, he's all over the circuit already for this film, and probably get into adapted screenplay and maybe Monet and hopefully some below the line categories. The one that it seems like they are trying to shift over big to is Pinocchio, and that would make sense. I mean, you have Del Toro being very beloved in the Academy, and kind of that movie snuck in Nightmare Alley last year, right at the last second, to pull out that number 10 spot probably in a bunch of tech categories. So we'll have to see though if it breaks through. I would hope so, because I love the film and I think it's beautiful. But I don't know. I don't know about it.
Well, I mean, let's look at those four big picks if we're not really considering white noise, because I don't think we are. You have Bardo, Mexico's pick, but it's still an international film. All Quiet, Germany's pick, an international war film. Pinocchio, an animated film. We haven't had an animated film since the first 2 years of the expanded lineup.
True.
And never
Glass
a
Onion.
non-Disney Pixar.
Exactly. Glass Onion is still a comedy. And
A sequel comedy.
A sequel comedy.
Obviously Knives Out got really, really close, though, I think, to Best Picture. And then it had to settle just for the screenplay. So we know where the voters kind of look at things and why they look at things. And Bardo and All Quiet are not top 2 international films.
They'll be lucky to make both, if not one of those, in at this point. It feels like
Pinocchio is kind of working against Marcel the Shell for animated.
I think
dominance.
Pinocchio's in the one spot right now, though.
Yeah, but I'm saying there isn't anything that is going to be able to push past the stigmas that are already on top of it, regardless of it's Netflix or not.
Yeah, I agree. But I think if there's one person out of all the films that can push them over the top at this point, it's Guillermo del Toro. Honestly, because everybody loves.
I would agree.
Yeah,
but
everybody loves that man.
Everybody loves that man, but that does not mean that's going to get them to vote for an animated film in Best Picture.
I mean, I think they would, because
it needs to damn happen.
Yeah, it needs to happen. It's also too.
I agree. I agree, and this is probably the best chance that any film has had.
Yeah,
but I don't know, man. That's a pretty thick bias to break through.
It is. I mean, Inside Out and Soul couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm. And those were like pretty universally beloved. Yeah. So
I mean, Solid 10 does help it for sure.
Yeah,
which we didn't have with those other examples, but I still think it's a challenge. It is, and you really have to make the case for it. And I kind of feel like you need to start that real early. And Netflix has done it a little bit, but I don't think enough to really commit to that lane. And I think that's the problem with that movie. Even with Del Toro being the wonderful ambassador to cinema, you still need to kind of frame it in people's minds that it's not just an animated movie. And I know like that the problem to say, understand, but like that's just the mentality people have. And you need to sell that to them early and consistently. I just don't feel like Netflix has been doing that as much as they should if they really wanted to get into that lineup.
I think you need to sell it. You need to sell not just the movie as a whole, not just the director behind it. You need to sell each of the different tech categories that you could possibly get into evenly. You have to push the production design, how it is actually production design and why it deserves. You have to push sound and why that works and what the work they did. You have Alexandre Desplat who did the score and the song, so that sort of pushes itself a little, but like everything
VFX.
else, the editing, the cinematography, the visual effects, you have to get out into those branches with those people to convince them that this is a movie just like any other movie and deserves its place. And Guillermo, I think, is doing a good job in his interviews out there, pushing the fact that he believes that this is a movie just like any other, and animation is a form of art just like all film is. But they have to convince all the tech people and all the actors that this is as worthy. And the shocking thing that I keep coming back to is so many actors have done voiceover work for animated films throughout the years, and you never ever see them going to bat for these animated films in Best Picture. You never see them going for these, even though so many have done that work. And it's interesting talking to them and seeing that, like, we love that work. It's good work, love doing it, but it's not the same as making a live action movie because of so many different things.
I think
They have their own stigma against their own work and their own style.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I do think though that they have, I mean, Guillermo's basically been in New York the last 2 weeks at every screening, trying to talk to as many people. They've had screenings.
In LA before that.
In LA before that, I was at both of them.
He's a great campaigner.
Voters are in the room.
Yes.
They love it. It's the thing of like what you're saying, Dan. Do they love it as an animated film or do they love it as a piece of cinema?
Mm-hmm.
And if they love it as a piece of cinema, and they're doing a good job. I mean, they have the MoMA exhibit that's out there in New York right now that showcases this entire the set and how it's all constructed and everything. So I can totally see them starting from that ground level and then building it, once we get towards the guilds and making their cases at bake-offs and stuff like that. The problem is, it's like, do they get into those? I mean, I would think that they could. And I think by that point, I think Netflix is strategically starting to move more and more towards that film and Glass Onion as their two. And, Bardo and All Quiet on the Western Front are international features and probably busts at this point. And
I think something else Pinocchio would need is to also really sell the emotion of that story. Because if you think about like Up and Toy Story 3, the thing that people remembered so much was how much they like cried during certain moments of that. And there's definitely potential with that in Pinocchio to get that response out of people. But I think in addition to highlighting the craft, you really do need to also say, like, this is a movie that make you cry. And it sounds cynical, but it does feel like that's the magic ingredient that these kinds of movies need to break into that kind of a lineup. And right now I'm seeing a lot about the craft of that movie and not a ton about the emotional impact of it. And with a campaign for an animated film getting into Best Picture, I feel like that's also another component you need to emphasize to people.
Yeah. If they want to just
if voters want to talk about the emotion of it, I will talk to them.
I was just going to say, the one person we should put on a billboard is Erik, and just his reaction after he saw it.
Crying face that night. To Dan's point, though, the individual branches need to get behind it too. Sound, production design, which doesn't happen with. I mean, sound happens with animated films, or used to a little bit more, but it still kind of does. Again, if you're Pixar. But yeah, the other branches need to back it in their own branch as well as Best Picture.
Also, I'm going to say one more branch, and I don't think anyone mentioned it about it, but the writer's branch. It's in a
screenplay is an open enough category for it to get in.
Yep, and if we're talking about movies like The Whale and others that are not performing nearly as much in those categories, and it's like what women talking.
Glass Onion.
She said Maverick. I'm just saying, like, that movie can easily get in there, kind of like a Fantastic Mr.
I don't know about easily, but
no. What I'm saying is,
I understand.
You know what I mean. Like Josh is that it could be like a Fantastic Mr. Fox, like what Mark Gustafson, the co-director, worked on before. And everything there too. So
voters will look at it one of two ways. Either as we've seen this a million times, why would I vote for this adapted screenplay? Or wow, this is a really, really different version from the many that I've seen before.
I think what they really just need to do is show the Zemeckis film and then show the Del Toro film back to back. The Del Toro film being the last one. And then you tell me how you don't nominate that for Best Picture.
People will go from vomiting to crying.
There you go. Or both simultaneously. You never know. So, well, that's our listener questions. That's going to do it for this week's show. Erik, tell everyone where they can find you and all your awesomeness on the internet.
At awardswatch.com and awardswatch on Instagram and awards_watch on Twitter.
What do we got coming this week? Tease the audience.
We've got interviews with Margot Robbie and Diego Calva and Baz Luhrmann. We have Jess Gonch, the production designer of White Noise. We have a lot of things coming.
Yeah.
What else do we got? We got more.
We got more. Yeah, we got a lot of great stuff. A lot of great people doing, and that's just all the stuff Erik and
Dillard. We got a lot. It's a busy week. I will probably die.
Please don't, because we love you, and that would just be very sad. Josh Parham, where can we find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd over at JR Parham, and the bulk of my work is over on Next Best Picture.
All right. Dan Bayer, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Dancing Dan on Film, and you can find me once Twitter finally dies its long, slow, painfully agonizing death.
Wow.
You can find me at Letterboxd, Hive, and Post at Dancing Dan.
We're still doing Hive?
It exists, kind of.
Everyone got so excited about it and signed up.
It hasn't really worked.
I know.
I made like one post.
I saw like all the Hive stuff, and like someone said, "This is still a thing," and I went on there, and no one's posted on there for like 3 weeks. It's kind of funny.
It wasn't working
because it hasn't worked. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked like it's alternative, but I need to be able to open the app at least.
Yeah.
Bless their hearts.
Yeah.
You can find me for now on Twitter. And then, of course, you can find me on Instagram and Letterboxd at Ryan McQuade 77. You can find my work here at AwardsWatch. I have an interview coming up later this week with the star of Devotion, the one and only Mr. Jonathan Majors. That's written, and there'll also be video with that, too. So you can all see me try to keep it together with Jonathan Majors on video. And you can also find myself over at In Session Film, the playlist, and Film Speak. Next week's show is, I think it's like the second to last episode of the new year. I want to say we're going to start doing some of our favorite things of the year. So favorite performances, favorite scenes, favorite scores, directors, things of that nature. We're going to give out some of our favorite awards. And then the week after, we'll do our favorite films of the year. And then for the new year, we'll do our most anticipated films of the year. So that gives you 3 weeks of what we'll be doing. In between those, Erik and I and hodgepodge of our wonderful crew here will be talking about, Critics' Choice and SAG nominations and Golden Globe nominations, all these different things in between. So until then, we'll see you all next time.